neoteny and myotony in humans. Neoteny with the N like no, and myotony like the M of me. They sound very similar, but they are spelled differently. I dealt in another video our history. The video was regarding Homo erectus. Not only it is important to know our present and our future eternal life, but it is also very important to know where do we come from and our history, the very ancient history, or at least try to figure it out through prayer, through mysticism, etc. Since Australopithecus, the man of the south in Africa, we had after that Homo erectus, the man who started standing, the primate who stood up. And we can notice from the fossils that there has been an evolution through neotenia. Neo means new, tenia like tendency. In German tenen, in Latin tenere, to keep new, neotenia, to keep new, to keep juvenile, to remain infantile. So while our primate cousins did not have any neotenia, Homo erectus did. We had this neoteny. We kept this tendency of remaining juvenile, infantile. So the head remained proportionately to the body a little bit bigger than the rest of the primates. All the hairs started to go away, so we started having glabrousness. Glabrousness is the disappearance of hair, and as I explained in the other video, in East Africa, Central East Africa, the weather changed and it started to be very much hot. So because of the sun and the heat, the body started to change its physiognomy, and hair after hair they started to fall away, while the rest of the primates in Central Africa, Central West Africa, they still had lots of rains, so they kept their hair. We are not descendant from them, they are just our cousins. We have a mutual ancestor. So that is neoteny, with the N like no. We see also in Italian we have neonatale. Shops in the streets until now is written neonatale. Neo means new. Natale means natality, i.e. newly born. So they are similar words used until this day. While myotony with the M like me, as I explained in the other video, Homo habilis, which was the able man, started to be much of his time in the prairies, in the savannah, in the very dry place, where there were lots of beasts, very wild and dangerous beasts. And there was this plenty of grass, quite tall grass, something like 5'10" or something. And Homo habilis did not stand yet. It was still Homo habilis, but it started to stand. Not standing, just watching. As explained in the other video, they were watching the trees. Very few trees there were left because of the heat. So they had to spot the trees which represented like an oasis, like a saving point. In case there was a wild beast, they had to run to that tree and climb it and climb the tree and be safe. So they had to stand and watch all the time, hours and hours. They had to spot the trees also to see where there were the fruits. They wanted to consume the fruits of the trees first, and then when they were finished, they were looking for the fruits on the ground. So they had to stand all the time. They needed the trees also for the shade, to be under a shade. So always standing and watching these blessed trees. And they were standing also a lot of time because they were watching around for the beasts. Look at the right, look at the left, look in front of you, look behind you. All of them, all the time, standing and watching, standing and watching. So they formed a contraction in their back, in the lumbar area. And they formed myotonia lumborum, as I coined it in Latin, which is lumbar myotony, atrophization of the lumbar area. It started to become ever more difficult and difficult to walk on the four legs. They still did that, but it was becoming very difficult because they started to have a problem in their back. They were standing all the time. So when they had to go back to their natural state, it was painful. They could not walk on their four legs. And slowly, they started walking only on the two legs. So they became bipiede. Piede means foot, foot. So going back to neotenia, and that is keeping the infantile somatic traits, we started having a larger head, hairlessness, a baby face. It was not changing. We kept like a baby face since birth. That's why Homo sapiens is different from the other hominids. We also kept a flat face, so not a very typical ape or primate face, very typical. We kept it like flat. And then arms and legs also were shorter. Arms became shorter because we started climbing less trees, so the body started to change. While the other primates, they kept climbing on the trees. That's why they have longer hands until now, our cousins. So where does Adam and Eve fit? It is said, just as a hypothesis or theory, we don't even know, that Homo erectus was around 1.5 million years ago. That's a lot of time. And the other ones, like Australopithecus africanus and afarensis and anamensis and boisei, even more, 2, 3, 4, 5 million years ago, they say. But who knows? I think it's much less than that. And then we started having the Homo series, like Homo habilis, Homo erectus, around 1.5 million years ago, and then Homo rudolfensis, Neanderthalensis, which is Neanderthal, then Homo sapiens, and then Homo sapiens sapiens, which I think should be called Homo habilis habilis, just a few hundred people every 100 years. And they are the super able people who invent things, not the ones who know how to run them, the one who invent them. And they are not necessarily the people with the highest IQ. They are just very, very technical, very clever technically, just like the Homo habilis at the beginning. The highest IQ, we have them in Homo sapiens. And there is no Homo sapiens sapiens according to me. There is Homo habilis habilis. And all the people running the world, the presidents and people running the machines, just running them and knowing how to run them, are within the Homo sapiens, with one sapiens. And then we have the ultimate human, which according to the Zacarian Christian Gnosticism is Homo hiereticus, the free thinker man, the man with free choice, the man which runs away from preconceived boundaries and limits and frameworks, without any problem and with lots of courage. And they are still just a few hundred, just like the Homo habilis habilis. But they are increasing by the day, increasing exponentially. Adam and Eve fit in the Homo sapiens era, and that is within the 100,000 years, not more than 100,000 years, and not at all within the 10,000 years, as all main religions, monotheistic religions say. They say that Adam and Eve were created between 6 to 9,000. That's impossible. It's too close. It's too close. Of course, I'm making things up, just like all the rest. But I'm putting prayer and mysticism in it, while most of the others, they just put the knowledge and books. But at the end of the day, it's all making things up. When they say the theory of evolution, who said it is a theory? It is a hypothesis. We can't prove anything. As I can't prove anything, they can't prove anything. It's all made up. No such thing as observation, measurements, and analysis. It's just some kind of a joke. When we find a fossil, we can say anything about it. Even scientific analysis. You have various scientists arguing in the same point differently. Opinion A, opinion B, opinion C, from the same super decorated scientists. So it's all made up. And it's very difficult to find people that can make up things, because it needs lots of courage and don't care to being pointed out like a probable nutcase. So Adam and Eve, they fit within the 100,000 years, within that framework of time. And precisely in around the period when Homo habilis became effectively as Homo erectus, they started following the big animals moving in the safari, because they were like an insurance in life, an insurance on their life. If lions or tigers came about, they would attack those big animals, which were less quick and fast. So by following elephants, hippopotamus, cows, horses, buffaloes, and all those big animals, if they found trees, wonderful, they would pick the fruit. But if there were no trees, they would just look at the soil and try to eat vegetable or fruit from the land. It was a difficult life, but they didn't even know it, of course. And there is this hypothesis, or theory as someone calls it, of Terence McKenna, that when Homo habilis was following those big animals, they would just meddle and search for food on the ground, and they would touch the manures, the stool of the animals. They wouldn't eat that, of course, but they found under the manures, especially of the cows, the next day or a couple of days later, some small mushrooms, which was growing right there because of the special digestive system of those big animals, especially the cows. Those type of mushrooms liked very much the nutrients coming from those type of stool and manures. So Homo erectus started eating them, and they received lots of benefits: stronger eyesight, better voice, some sort of articulation of some words, more favorable reproduction system, and above all, boosting some cerebral activity in the mind, and giving some type of daydreaming, of imagination. Scientists discovered that it was boosting the tetramines, and strangely enough, the tetramines are the only element present in all creation. It is a common element in all creation, in humans, in animals, in plants, and in small organisms. Unbelievable but true, especially the dimethyl type. So imagine humans have in common with plants a type of tetramine, and with animals also, and with the amoeba also, and with the microbes also, and with anything you can think of. Unbelievable. Anything you can think of, which is alive, of course. So God created that element present in all his creation, the only element which is in common. At the time of Homo erectus, the tetramines were induced or triggered endogenously, or rather exogenously, i.e. from the outside. They were made triggered from the outside, exogenously. But we know that it is endogenous, it is within the human body, in the brain and in the vertebral column. And it can be triggered, it can be induced endogenously from within. So there is no need for external aid to have it. It can be triggered through mysticism, prayer, and deep thought. Adam and Eve were created right at that moment, when they had that mystic experience with the Creator of all. May God bless you as you make your prayers and your own research.